Hey, what's up, good people? How you doing? Welcome back to Stock Up with Larry Jones. You already know what to do, okay? Now, this video is going, hey, hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell if you want the truth and if you want to know how to make money, how to truly make money. Again, this is brought to you by Stock Up You, where we have an entire crypto class in there. If you want to really learn and stop playing around, download it. It's going to be the top link below, good people. And use coupon code LEARN, LEARN. Learn about crypto, learn about technical analysts, learn about options, learn how to make money, okay? So let's get right into it. I'm going to talk about XRP, okay? And this is not a I told you so. Okay, this is not an I told you so video at all. As a matter of fact, a lot of you guys that have XRP are going to think it's kind of interesting because I will let you know that I have been a truth teller as it pertains to XRP, but I also believe in XRP and have XRP. Of course, when XRP does go up, we're going to discuss that in a minute. People are not going to see this. All right. So I want you guys to know that I believe in XRP long term. I believe in its use case long term. I've said repeatedly that I think it has one of the strongest use cases out of any crypto, period, out of any crypto. And there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes, but here's some of the things I want you to be leery of, okay? So when I literally just Google XRP, these are the type of stories that keep people huffing like a dog that you're holding meat in front of, okay? And we don't want to be that. Look at this. Expert reveals XRP price in 5 years with the ETF inflows and outflows. Well, clearly you can see now no one knows what XRP is going to be in 5 years. And everybody that even speculate didn't even come close. I'll tell you the truth. I think Bitcoin could be a 500,000 in 5 years. But the truth be told, it's just a wild guess. But when you have this expert, there's so many experts out there. Well, these experts don't have a track record for you to follow. Okay, so now that all the ridiculousness of these insane 2025 price predictions, $100 are over, I believe that there is good money to be made in XRP. Okay, so when you go down here, you follow down this rabbit trail. It goes through, it lays out a good case with inflows, outflows, ETFs, and all of that. It keeps going down this path, right? And then it says align with a price of $68. And so a 20 billion and 20 billion would align with a price of $68. Meanwhile, it keeps going. It keeps going. He ends up at about $68. You can see here. All right. A price of about $68. Okay. In the next 5 years or so, you guys could read this for yourself. I'm not going to bring you down this rabbit hole. Just type in expert reveals XRP price in 5 years with ETF inflows and market cap multipliers. Okay. So now I do like the way that they went down and laid stuff out this way. Instead of people that don't know tokenomics, don't know market caps, and just grab a number, right, out of the ether, right? I don't like that, okay? So now what I'm going to show you something is here's how there's money to be made, but I don't want you stepping over $1 to get a dime. So let's go back to 2 cycles ago, early 2017. XRP began the year at, look at that, 0.006. And the high was about 40 cents. Okay, so it went from 0.006 to 0.40 by April of 2017. Well, if you take out a calculator and you put 0.40 divided by 0.006, good people, that is a 66x. A 66x. But what happens is people that try to get rich, you know, some people actually bought in at the top and then it went down. I did talk to some of you guys that actually bought some back then and still have it. You're the smart ones, okay? And so what else happened? Then we had last cycle. The highs, of course, the bull run was 2021, okay? And so XRP reached approximately 180, $1.80 to $1.90. But the all-time high, look at this. The all-time high was 366. Look at that. But this was not achieved in 2021. The all-time high was 366. But look at here, 190. So now for the people that even bought it at 40 cents, okay? So now let's take $1.90 divided by 40 cents. That's a 4.75x. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm getting at? So the people that buy and just hold, they're going to be fine. Or if you're swing trading, you just buy it at the low and hold it for a cycle, okay? Now, we are in extreme fear. Yesterday we were down here, but since crypto has come up, then we're less fearful and we're buying more now, right? But last week we're at extreme fear 15. Yesterday we were extreme fear 12, right? So the lower it goes, the price, the more fear comes in. To me, is when you should be buying. Anything I say is not a suggestion for you to buy, hold, or sell, okay? And so what I want you to do right now that all of the FUD is gone, now you could really look into the realistic use case of XRP. In Money Moves, I bought some shares. I bought just one or two shares to keep my eye on it of Bitwise, which is the XRP ETF. And before you say, hey, you don't own it, I have a ton of XRP, right, in a crypto portfolio. Now I'm adding to this, and I'm going to explain that in a minute like I did on yesterday. So now you got XRP here. Now remember, this ETF just started, so you don't really have anything to track it off of. Now, why are you bringing up the ETF? Because this is one of the things I want to show you. I want to show you that wealthy people take out loans against their equities. I know we talked about that, and someone says, yes, but explain about getting margin called. Well, wealthy people don't just go to their brokers to get loans. They go to their banks to get loans, okay? And this is what I want to show you. I put in, can you take a loan out against your crypto in Coinbase from a bank? No, you cannot directly. Why? Because the banks don't see it as a legal institution as far as, the Fidelity, the Schwabs, the financial institutions because of lack of regulation. But if you buy it through an ETF, the answer turns into yes. You could literally take out a SBLOC loan. Okay? You can see that, right? A secured base line of credit. All right? A securities based line of credit. And this is what you do. All right? You can go through here. It shows you the ETFs and all of that. And you say, well, y'all like to own my XRP. And I'm saying, why not do them both? Why not own your XRP and have a vehicle that you could borrow against? Why? Because that's what wealthy people do. And they keep their equity. So I haven't sold any of my XRP in my crypto portfolio. And I'm going to add more in crypto winter. And now I'm adding some XRP even today in my ETF and IBIT and some Bitcoin. But let's talk about XRP because that is what this is all about. So what I'm going to say to you now is, now that all of the FUD is over, now there's a clearer path to make some serious money with XRP. It's your purchase price. Your purchase price, your purchase price. It's not the hype price. It's not the pie in the sky price. It's your purchase price. And I'm going to tell you, even if you started accumulating now in both the ETFs and especially under $2, all right? At this point, I would wait for it to fall back under $2. But if you didn't, if you wanted to DCA now, that's fine because it's not 360, okay? It's $2-ish. Now I would consider dollar cost averaging. The thing about the ETFs is if you got it in Fidelity, Schwab, or TD Ameritrade, you can set it and forget it and just continue to buy. The same thing like Coinbase and those other crypto platforms where you just put your money in there and tell it when to buy. Now, that's what I'm going to be doing with XRP. And from now until 2030, even though I got big bags in XRP, I'm going to buy way more than I have on the downturn rather than when it was overhyped. Okay? So now that the FUD is over and reality is here, we could make money with XRP. Please, please let the people know that I am and always have been pro XRP, but at the right price without all of the FUD. Now, I have a Bitcoin mining CEO that I'm going to play an interview I did yesterday in its entirety. He's the CEO of Hive Digital, Mr. Aiden Kellick. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, Larry, it's great to be back. We met at the Bitcoin Vegas conference in May of 2025. It's now November, just before Thanksgiving. I'm Aiden Kellick, President and CEO, Hive Digital Technologies, listed on NASDAQ, the first publicly traded Bitcoin miner ever, going public on the TSXV in Canada in 2017. So we've been through 2 Bitcoin halvings, an Ethereum merge, and we've even built our own ASIC miner with Intel. So we've done it all, and we've pivoted into HPC and AI as well. So a lot of fun stuff to talk about today.
Yes. So yeah, you just went over that. First publicly traded Bitcoin mining, 2017. Longest tenure CEO, CFO, and chairman in the industry. Okay. Just posted the strongest quarter in company's history. So you knocking the ball out of the park.
Thank you, sir. It's been a transformative year for Hive. We just completed 300 megawatts in about 6 months in Paraguay, which I think is a record in the industry. We brought online almost an exahash a week consistently. We grew from 6 exahash to 25 exahash. Really what that means is we had our annual revenue from the Bitcoin mining business at the beginning of this year was about 100 million. And we just hit 400 million ARR. We quadrupled our revenue this year with this transformative expansion into Paraguay. And as part of that, we cracked $1 billion market cap, Canadian and US. So yeah, it's been a heck of a year.
You know, I did see that, and sometimes we look for smaller companies. For a $1 billion company to most is a lot, but in the stock market, as it pertains to the price of the equity, that's a small, relatively small company. But on this page, we've made a lot of money on small caps because they really run when they do well. And as I look at the stock itself, I could see that it is a moderate buy to a strong buy, and analysts have you, and I know you probably can't talk about the stocks. I'm going to talk about the stocks for a second, then we're going to ask you some more questions. They have a average price target of $8.13 to $9. The highest price is from from $10 to $11. And even after a great pump on yesterday. Right now, at the time of filming this, you're at like 321. Okay, and so wow, that's a lot of room for growth. What do you have to add to that?
Yeah, that's all absolutely correct. We are covered by about seven research analysts at institutions throughout the U.S. KBW, Canaccord, Cantor, Fitzgerald, Roth, to name a few. And those you've got the price targets absolutely correct. And I will point out that in October, our stock actually hit $7 US, and so the whole market has pulled back in the last 6 weeks, but a couple of catalysts. Bitcoin prices retraced, but I think we saw it consolidate, and now we're at 89,000 Bitcoin as of the time of this interview, and it had fallen as low as 81. So I think that was just the Bitcoin price pulling back. It's finding its footing and consolidating, and I think a
Yes.
lot of the industry experts are hoping that we're going to see the final leg of the bull run, hopefully a golden bull run where we see Bitcoin at 150,000 plus. And that would, to me, signal the real bull run of this 4 year cycle. And moreover, the interesting thing is that we have more cash flow today than we did in October. I mean, we completed our final phase in Paraguay and got to 25 exahash, a couple weeks ago. So our cash flow has actually been growing. Of course, when Bitcoin price corrects, there's a bit of margin compression, but as that Bitcoin price continues to rise, and we've got some really exciting news in the HPC world. We just announced the first order of our NVIDIA Blackwell B200s, their partnership with Bell, Canada's largest telecom company. And we've got a run rate target of revenue for the end of next year for over $200 million on the AI business and HPC business alone, in addition to the Bitcoin mining business. We're at 400 million ARR today. So a lot of exciting catalysts. And this is the sort of stuff that those analysts that are very well versed in these sectors, that's what they're basing their price targets on. So we've seen a great performance in our stock this year. And today alone, yeah, our stock is up 10% as of market close. So, I think it's, end of October, early November, a bit of a overall market correction. But now we're
Yes.
hoping that with a government coming back, shifting into a period of quantitative easing as well, just fiscally, I'm hoping that equities will have a strong finish this year.
More quantitative easing and hopefully a December rate cut will fare well
Hmm.
for all
Yeah.
Bitcoin and all Bitcoin miners and all Bitcoin related stock. I'm just going to shift right here. We're going to talk about AI and what you guys are doing in that industry or in that area and data centers. We're going to cover that. But let's just get right to the meat. What my followers want to know. Okay. And I know you cannot call a price, but one of the things I like about you is you're not scared of these questions. So me and Ian, we really kicked it at the Bitcoin conference, and we chopped it up after the cameras were off. You know, Bitcoin being held back this year. The liquidations, massive liquidations, and whales and OGs being fearful and taking money out of the market. But there's a ton on the sideline. I believe that Tom Lee is right. Ton of cash on the sidelines that's waiting to get back into crypto. Do you think that the top, at first we were all looking at the top to be, around now, the end of the year. Do you think that the top of Bitcoin is already in, or do you think that the top and that's the word could, come in Q1 of maybe 2026? And before you answer that, I'm going to say anything that Aiden and myself say is not a suggestion for you to buy, hold, or sell. We're just two guys on YouTube having a discussion. So, what do you think, Aiden?
Correct. We're two guys on YouTube having a discussion, and you've got a great platform. I think that I can answer that question by providing you feedback in both directions. So, uh, talking to a lot of really smart people that are traders and trade derivatives and really pay attention to all that technical analysis. The previous floor was thought to be 92,000, and this was sort of when Bitcoin was over 100, and it was thought that it would consolidate around 92 and maybe sit there for a while. But then when certain technical levels were, and I'm not a trader, by the way, I'm
Right.
a CEO of a mining company. I'm really good at Bitcoin mining and being a CEO of a public company. But the feedback I was given was that that floor for consolidation then broke into the 78 to $83,000 range.
Mm.
And what they were saying was if it fell below that, a crypto winter would set in. So what's great and what we've seen in the last week is that it defended that floor, it consolidated, and now Bitcoin's at 88, 89. So I think that that was more of a correction. So it can consolidate. You have a lot of big institutions, the MicroStrategies of the world, all these digital asset treasury companies that came in and raised money to buy crypto. So there's a lot of people that I think are long term invested that are hoping to see a rally. And again, you have conversations with whether it's wealth advisors at Morgan Stanley or big ETF funds, etc. When I go to New York, and I think just conversationally, a lot of people were calling that the true signal of the bull market would be 150 to 200,000. I think maybe in and around the $150,000 range would signal, okay, like you've really seen the bull run. You can never really say when that would be.
Right.
Is it in Q1? I don't know, but I think that the two catalysts that you've already identified, we've seen pretty strong causality where if there were two significant rate cuts like in December and January, I think that would be a pretty strong signal that you see risk on assets like not just Bitcoin, but even gold. We saw gold rally to all time highs over $4,000. And so I think risk on assets definitely perform well when there's more liquidity in the system. So we'll see. The rate cut is a little over a couple weeks away. Obviously, the government shutdown didn't help. And so there was other macroeconomic factors. A lot of tech stocks pulled back in the last couple of weeks. There was, an interview with CoreWeave and Jim Cramer that I thought the CEO of CoreWeave did a phenomenal job at. Jim
Yeah.
Cramer was just, attacking with all these negative questions, and
Yep.
their
Yep.
stock dropped, and it was a lot of just, FUD after that. But now AWS has come out and said they want to invest $50 billion in AI. So now the markets are bullish again. So, it's like the weather, man. You got sunny days and rainy days. And so I think that fundamentally we're seeing a lot of demand. I heard Lambda just raised over $1 billion. So you've got a lot of demand at the actual, at the ground level where the big model builders, the data center builders, that demand is still brimming and it's still hot as ever. So that's good. Fundamentally, the actual builders and consumers of HPC data centers and AI compute with GPU clusters, that's all still there. The market's just sort of gone through this little bit of a correction. So I'm really hoping that we see continued momentum in the markets. But again, that will really be driven by what do rate cuts look like. And but again, it's good that the government's getting back to it. And there was another interesting thing. There was, I think, Brian Armstrong at Coinbase. He was working on this market structure bill for crypto that would also help with policy as it related to digital assets. So, I think that the more that the U.S. government has a strong framework that's pro crypto, you've got the Genius Act, and Tether is bringing in USAT. So they've got USDT, but they're going to have a new stablecoin. And I was just in Miami at the Cantor conference, and Paulo Arduino, the CEO of Tether, did a brilliant keynote. And they've hired Bo Hines to be the CEO, and he comes from Trump's administration and digital assets. It's going to be the first Genius Act compliant stablecoin. So that will create a really good conduit, right, of capital,
Yeah.
institutional or otherwise, into digital assets, I believe. So I think that you do have the tracks being laid for more and more overall adoption, or just even easier and a more conducive manner for a lot of retail and institutional capital to own crypto natively and not have to rely on things like ETFs. Although ETFs are great too, I think that directionally, the tracks are laid for institutions and retails to own crypto more directly and more easily while being compliant with all sorts of federal regulations.
Let's talk about AI cloud and or data centers. We know that for AI to work, we need a lot more energy and a lot more energy sources, right? So the need for the juice is bigger than the juice. What are you guys doing in that area?
Yeah, so it was on our webcast. We just released our fiscal Q2, which was period end September 30th. And so it was reported on November 14th. So If you go to our YouTube or check out our Twitter, there should be a link to the webcast. So I spoke about that. We have a site in New Brunswick that's currently a 70 megawatt tier one data center, meaning it's a Bitcoin data center. And we've identified that as a candidate for conversion to HPC, which would be a phenomenal. New Brunswick, it's right by the border of Maine, Grand Falls. It qualifies as a secondary market for HPC. And would if that was converted, and we're in talks with a couple of hyperscalers, that would add 80 million of annual run rate revenue to our HPC AI cloud business. And that's included in that 200 plus million target I cited earlier. We have a target of $140 million of annual run rate revenue from our GPU AI cloud business. And that's from adding 6,000 NVIDIA Blackwell B200s and B300s over the next year, 2,000 in Toronto, 2,000 in our partnership with Bell Canada, Canada's largest telecom player. Those will sit in Manitoba. And in addition to that, 2,000 GPUs in northern Sweden at our data center in Boden. So additional 6,000 Blackwells coming online sequentially over the next year, getting our current ARR of 20 million to 140 million. And that incremental revenue is going to be about a 80% operating margin we're expecting. So nice high margin business. And then in addition to that 140 million combined GPU cloud revenue would be another 80 million with the conversion of New Brunswick. So that's really exciting. And that's what gets you to the sort of north of 200 million ARR. And you look at the multiples on that business, look at companies like CoreWeave or look at companies like Core Scientific or Iris, it really puts us, I think we looked at a fundamental value proposition comparison based on where our peers are trading at on an enterprise value per exahash basis, would suggest a market cap of 4.5 billion for Hive. And again, that's just based on industry comps.
Right.
And today we're just under a billion US. So I think that as with the strong demand in the market, what we've got in the pipeline, there's a lot of potential upside. Of course, we've got to execute, but I think the key thing for 2025, it was our business card to the world. We promised that we're going to get 25 exahash online by Thanksgiving. Well, Thanksgiving came 2 weeks early at Hive, and so we hit that ahead of schedule, and that was a massive infrastructure project. So I'm really hoping that we get that benefit of the doubt multiple going forward. Now that the
Yeah.
street has seen, wow, Hive is very capable, and we've got a lot of expertise. So it's going to be a really exciting year ahead, especially on the HPC AI front.
Well, that kind of puts you more in the value stock. I could see your revenue quarter over quarter has been doing well, and what you just said will help your net income and your profit margins, and make it a more valuable a value company, especially where the analysts have you guys headed to. Which is pretty strong. I just read this just before I came on. I'm kind of shocked at the price predictions of these analysts. A lot of companies struggle during those lean months, or should I say lean years. What do you guys plan on doing?
So what we did is we upgraded our fleet of Bitcoin ASIC miners. Our global fleet average efficiency is 17 and a half joules a terahash. What that means is our break-even hash price, assuming a 5 cent power cost, direct operating cost, is $22 hash price. What does that mean?
Hmm.
Well, we're at a $36 hash price today, even with Bitcoin at 88,000 in difficulty at all-time highs. So we have a lot of margin before we're break even, and so I think that we won't see a $22 hash price until after the next halving. So we are well prepared, and we've mined profitably, Larry, every single quarter since I've been with Hive over the last 5 years. I joined in January 2021. I'm talking through the FTX bankruptcy in 2022, Celsius bankruptcy, all that crazy stuff. And
Wow.
it's because we're very disciplined. So we will turn off any machines that are not profitable. We'll optimize the machines before we turn it off by downclocking them using firmware adjustments. It's all unit economics. What is your input cost in energy versus the output value of the compute you generate?
Right.
It's all done economics. There's something I call the bridge equation. It's on my Twitter. It is your hash price, your break-even hash price in Bitcoin mining equals, it's a math equation, electrical price times machine efficiency times 24 hours in a day. So what that means is if you
Okay.
have, yeah, so if you got an
Yeah.
S19, and not a lot of crypto mining CEOs talk about it. I've got an electrical engineering
Can,
background, so
can,
I'm
can you go over that again? That's actually very interesting. I'm learning something myself because we have a
yeah.
lot of people that are new to crypto and don't understand the hash rate and what you just calculated. Could you go over that segment one more
So
time?
So basically, you can go to Google Luxor hash price, Luxor. They're a mining pool, and they're players in the crypto mining ecosystem. Great guys, and they're friends of Hive. And so they have the hash rate index. So it's a data analytics platform. You could see the live hash price historically and currently. And so what you want to do is see where the hash price is. So today the hash rate is $36, okay, per petahash a day. That means for every one petahash of Bitcoin mining capacity you have on, whether you're in Kazakhstan or Canada, the network will pay you $36. And so that's a network wide metric. Now, the bridge equation, which is something I coined and I sort of mathematically derived a couple of years ago, and it because Bitcoin mining is really physics and computer science, right? So the
Right.
equation is this: your hash price, your break-even hash price equals your electrical price times your machine efficiency times 24 hours. So I'm going to step you through an example right now. So you can take notes here if your fans out there are listening. So let's use that S19J Pro, one of the most iconic, prolific ASIC miners out there. It has a machine efficiency of 30 joules a terahash. That means for every terahash output, it consumes 30 joules of energy. So your number is 30. Now, if your electrical price, say it's 4 cents, but you got other incidental costs, just your direct operating costs, let's say is about 5 cents a kilowatt hour. So you go 30 times 0.055 cents, which is 1.5 times 24 hours in a day equals 36, right? So right now, you are actually right at break even with an S19J Pro if you had 5 cent power at today's hash price. Now, good. If you're sophisticated and you can adjust the firmware, you can improve the efficiency. So the machine outputs 100 terahash. If you improve the efficiency, you can get that number instead of being 30 joules, you can get it down to like 26.
Yes.
But instead of outputting 100 terahash, it might output 85 or 90, whatever the case may be. It depends on the firmware and other factors. And you might say, "Oh, but I get less hash rate." It's like, yeah, but it becomes profitable hash
It's
rate because
still
there's no
profitable.
right. There's no point having hash rate if you're not profitable on it. Because
Exactly.
if right, so now if you run that equation again, so if you go point, let's say it's you get it down to 26, you go 5 cents, 0.05 times 26 is 1.3 times 24. Now all of a sudden your break even hash price is 31 and 20 cents. So just say 31. But if the network is paying 36, you're in the money $5, right? So per petahash per day. So you got to think that way. But you got
Right.
a fleet of ASICs all over the world that have different efficiencies. And where it gets complicated, you may have different sites with different electrical costs, but this is why we're the experts, right? So we track this stuff religiously. We're very dedicated. We have software systems to track it all. I still swoop in from time to time. Like my team will be like, I had an engineering meeting this morning. I just swept in. I was like, guys, like, are you guys paying attention? I spoke to all my site captains. Like, I'm very hands on when I need to be, but we have
Right.
that discipline high, right? Like every day, 7 a.m. my time, we have a global conference call. It's 10 a.m. in New York, it's 5 p.m. in Sweden. We're over 9 time zones. And we huddle for half an hour. We go over production, anything strategic. Then we huddle again at the end of the aftermarket close for to catch up on any items. So we have that high performance culture. We're in this game to win it, Larry. What can I say?
Right. Hey, it says here you scale Bitcoin mining capacity at 300% this year. So you're now
Mhm.
producing 10 Bitcoin per day. Is that
Yep.
correct? So
Yep.
how much do you huddle?
So our huddle was in our webcast, but it's important to note that we also have pledged approximately 2,000 Bitcoin. So that 300% growth is basically 4x, going from 6 to 25 exahash. Pardon me. And to do that, instead of paying cash for those ASICs, pardon me, and I covered this in my webcast. I encourage your viewers to check it out.
Can,
It's on
can
YouTube.
can can I let people know that this man has been traveling for a month? So we were talking a few, but go ahead.
Yeah, it's been a lot. I
Yeah.
had a 43-hour trip home from Paraguay. It was a flight cancellation, it was the whole thing. Got home Saturday night.
Yeah.
Anyways, so we had 210 Bitcoin in the treasury as of September 30th, but we had roughly 2,000 or 1,992 Bitcoin pledged. And the important thing to note with that pledge is that um, 758 Bitcoin were pledged at 115,000. That's downside protection. So, we pledged that Bitcoin and basically paid for those ASICs in kind with Bitcoin when Bitcoin was under 15,000. We have another 1,234 Bitcoin pledged at 87,000. So we still have a call option going into the new year, into about mid January, to buy back the Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin is at 90,000 or 100,000, we can actually go back and still buy our 1,200 plus Bitcoin at 87,000 and close that trade and actually make a profit on it. So that's what's really exciting. So we deployed our Bitcoin very strategically to grow our production. And so our HODL as of September 30th was sitting at 210, but with an option to buy back 1,234 Bitcoin at 87,000. So that's kind of trading up par today. But look, we've seen Bitcoin at 120, 126,000. So,
Yeah.
there's some potential upside there, which is really exciting.
Well, I got one final question, but before I do that, the price prediction that the analyst gave good people before you run out and buy is based on a 12-month period. Okay. So with Bitcoin miners, you want to get them at the right price, and you kind of want to do like you're doing with Bitcoin. You get them at the right price and you kind of hold or huddle or buy more when it's low. That's what I teach my people here, Aiden. Let's talk about where you think the cycle is going, and then you can end with anything behind that. So I've been saying I could see 130,000, and it doesn't have to be Q1 of next year. All right, we were looking at it this year, but of course we had these black swan events with these massive liquidations.
Yeah.
And there's going to be more things that are unforeseen. You know, Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until you get hit in the face, right?
You'll get hit. Yeah.
So,
I used to box. I know that
did
line
you?
well.
I've been in a room with Mike, man, and he walked by me, and dude, that dude, back then he was at his peak. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's another story. We'll talk about that later. But what do you realistically think, in the next 6, 9 months, realistically, all things considered, what do you realistically think Bitcoin could still hit?
Yeah, so I think realistically, I believe that there's still a 4-year cycle. There was a
Me too.
narrative that once there's enough institutional adoption, that all evaporates, and Bitcoin just becomes this like really stable asset class. But even gold pulls back, and gold's the largest asset in the world by far. It's like 14
Right.
trillion. So I think that what analysts are hoping for is that since it's consolidated and defended that 81,000 and now has rallied. We hope that, it's not necessarily just a straight linear rally, but I
Right.
am hoping that over the next couple of months here, we see another leg where, the bull market is truly signified and crowned with Bitcoin cracking 150,000. But looking at the 4-year cycle, once it does that, I'm not saying it will do that, but if it takes that pattern, you would see a perhaps a crypto winter set in, which is just part of that 4-year cycle, right? And
Right.
and where does it find its footing? Whether it's 130,000 or 150,000, that's sort of to be determined. But to your point, there are headwinds and tailwinds that you can't really predict. So I think the
Right.
crypto winter of 2022 was worse than it could have been or should have been because you had a series of catalysts. You had Terra Luna, an algorithmic stablecoin that, oh, guess what? That actually didn't work. And then the FTX thing. And because so
Yep.
many people were loaded up in 2022, it created a ripple effect.
And the stock
So,
market was in a bear market all year, 2022.
to- Totally. So there's a lot of factors like that. So you can never, I mean, Russia Ukraine war,
Yeah.
who knows, right? So I think that what is good, and I just bring it back to not, which is not Bitcoin specific, is that there's a lot of fundamental demand in the HPC and AI ecosystem at the ground level. Again, the people actually building the data centers, the people actually, the huge demand that OpenAI has for compute. So that's all very positive. And I think that more and more long term directionally, Bitcoin will be. It really is digital gold. It's a great store of value. The network is more secure than ever at over 30 gigawatts of power. And so I think that as there is more inflation, just directionally, Bitcoin will be seen as more and more of a scarce and energy backed decentralized currency, and it's just got a lot of intrinsic value. So definitely, I'm a Bitcoiner for sure,
Yeah,
and it's not necessarily you can't really perfectly predict when, but I just think directionally, Bitcoin is a very strong asset class, and we've seen it to continue to perform well. Even if you measure over time with the corrections, it performs very well.
I agree. I also think that we may have lower highs than previous cycles, but I believe that we'll also have higher lows. So I don't think that I don't think that Bitcoin will drop as much as previous crypto winters. I do believe, like you do, that if there's a halving, there's a 4-year cycle. It's just the facts. Now, the bull run may be delayed. So instead of it happening this year, going into next year, but there's still, my theory is as long as there's a halving, there's a 4-year cycle. I'm going to ask you for one more prediction ish 2030. Okay. 2030. And, you know, like you said, it's not a V-shaped recovery. It's not straight up. You're going to have liquidations. You're going to have unforeseen things. But when you zoom out, just like the S&P 500, it was steady going up. What do you think Bitcoin will be by the end of 2030 ish?
I mean, by the end of
Or in,
2030,
or you
so
know what, in the next 5 years?
yeah, like I typically think in 4-year cycles based on the halving. So the next halving will be in 2028, and what we've seen historically. So I'm not super into giving predictions, but I could certainly tell you about the past, and people can take from that what they will. But the when I got into the game 2016, 2017, the Bitcoin halving of 2016, we saw Bitcoin hit new all-time highs of 20,000 in December of 2017, about 15 months after it was June 2016 was the halving. So it was, about 18 months after, but that was the all-time high. So the bull
Right.
market really kicked in the summer of 2017, so it's usually like 12 to 18 months after the halving is when you see the bull market. Now let's go to the next halving. It was in 2020, but it was also COVID. Man, what a crazy
Right.
time.
What
Then we had a
crazy.
double top bull market, right? And it was February 2021, we saw 63,000. In November 2021, we saw 72,000. So if you look at that period, and as a miner, I think of hash price. So if you actually look at the width of that bull market, we had a 16-month window when hash price was over $200 a petahash a day. And so that was a substantial one in 2021. And so now this time we had the halving in May of 2024, and Trump's election in November was the first time Bitcoin cracked 100,000. So that was quicker.
Right.
That came like 8 months after. And then we saw
Good
Bitcoin
point.
sort of hit, 123,000, 126,000. So Bitcoin has sort of had, I like what you say, like lower highs and higher lows, because as time approaches infinity, if the lows are higher and the highs are lower, that 4-year cycle sort of flattens out a little bit as it becomes
Yep.
more sort of institutionalized. And so I think that if you look at and say, wow, well, if Bitcoin did 20,000 in 2017, and then it did 70,000, 73, whatever, roughly 3.5x in 2021, shouldn't it do 3.5x on this bull cycle? Like, shouldn't 3.5 times 70, 250,000? No, like it doesn't really work like that. Like,
Right.
if it doubled, that's basically 150,000 Bitcoin, which I think that's sort of, and again, this is anecdotal, right? Like all
Right.
sorts of analysts have all sorts of predictions, and you can
Correct.
go to those guys for predictions. I just kind of like, I'm an engineer. I know I do have more perceptions on hash price. I think you can actually track that more because the network self corrects with difficulty. And so, anyways, I think that if we see a hash price of over 60, that would be really amazing for the Bitcoin mining side of things. So yeah, I think it's the higher lows and the lower highs directionally are where I think it's going, and it makes it less volatile and a little bit more predictable. But Yeah, I hope this interview has been helpful for you, Larry. It's
It
always a
has.
pleasure to talk with you.
It has. Quick. You know what? It just came to my mind. I swear this is the last question. I sound like a
Okay.
Baptist preacher. My third close. But anyway, I quantum computing.
Mhm.
Just give me 30 seconds on what you think about the dangers to the blockchain from quantum computing.
Well, when I was in Lugano at the Tether conference a few weeks ago, really the closing panel was on that. And so they had some really bright experts talk about what needs to be done to have sort of a post quantum cryptography mechanism. And so there's something called a Bitcoin Improvement Protocol. There's a lot of really smart people thinking that through. And so it's, not anything that um, if you look at where quantum computing is today, you're like 5 to 10 years away before you would kind of have any imminent threat of how that could perhaps, create um, a threat for the SHA-256 encryption on Bitcoin. And I think that that gives the really smart people in the industry that are focused on that stuff ample time for improvements to the protocol to sort of have a post quantum consensus mechanism for Bitcoin. So yeah, that's sort of that's that. But I don't know if that panel was made available to the public, but it was a really good one, and they had some very smart people there. So just like anything, like Bitcoin continues to evolve, and so I think the future is bright for Bitcoin.
Me too. I'm going to end it there, get you some rest, my friend, and we will talk later. I'll see you at the Bitcoin conference.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, let's
Oh,
do another in person, my friend.
yes, sir. Sounds good. We'll see you then. Good people, please say thank you
Thank you.
to my good friend Iden. Let us know if you want him to come back again by leaving us a comment, and we'll see you later. Live, love, laugh, and learn.